Baby, now give me your la 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 la. Okay, that's it. That's all. All right, we're set.
Up next, Authentically Detroit discusses equitable development frameworks with Graig Donnelly, India Solomon, and Bucky Willis. But first, this week's hot takes from the Metro Times. Afro Nation is headed to Detroit for the second year. Keep it locked. Authentically Detroit starts after these messages.
Founded in 2021, the Stoudemire is a membership-based community recreation and wellness center centrally located on the east side of Detroit. Membership in the Stoudemire is available on a sliding scale for up to $20 per year or 20 hours of volunteer time. The Stoudemire offers art, dance, and fitness classes, community meetings and events, resource fairs, pop-up events, the Neighborhood Tech Hub, and more. Members who are residents of the East Side have access to exclusive services in the Wellness Network. Join today and live well, play well, be well. Visit ecndetroit.org.
Bridge Detroit is your news and engagement platform that is telling the stories of Detroiters rooted by community priorities. Started in 2020 by Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Stephen Henderson, the newsroom has already established its footing as the go-to source for hyper-local perspectives that ask the hard questions, brings accountability, and searches out real solutions. It's free to become a member of this award-winning news organization. Visit bridgedetroit.com today to sign up to receive the news delivered right to your inbox. Bridge Detroit, by Detroiters, for Detroiters.
Hey, y'all, it's Orlando. We just want to let you know that the views and opinions expressed during this podcast episode are those of the co-hosts and guests and not their sponsoring institutions. Now, let's start the show. Hello, Detroit and the world. Welcome to another episode of Authentically Detroit, broadcasting live from Cass Corridor at the WDET studios. We're content partner to bridgedetroit.com. I'm Orlando Bailey.
And I'm Donna Gibbons-Davidson.
And we want to thank you for listening and supporting our efforts to build a platform of authentic voices for real people in the city of Detroit. We want you to like, rate, and subscribe to our podcast on all platforms. We are happy to be back in the studio today. Donna, I'm so happy to see you after a busy month filled with live podcasts. I think we published maybe 3 episodes in one week.
Yes.
And we were doing all of those episodes just last week. And it's good to see you back in the studio. You
Likewise.
Look good. You're glowing. I don't know what you did this weekend.
I slept.
You know, it's something, for me though, let me tell you what's doing it for me. It's something about a black woman and hoop earrings that does it for me every time.
I thought you were talking about a black woman running for president. I'm
that
sorry.
That part too. I know you, my friend, and I know you married, but them hoops is doing what they're supposed to be doing today. Today we are joined by the organizers of the Afro Nation Festival, Smade, co-founder of Afro Nation Festival, Josh, festival organizer and lead talent booker, and Essosa, festival organizer and communications and social manager. Welcome to Authentically Detroit, everybody.
What up, though?
Now you know what? Listen, I usually say, when people are visiting Detroit, that's not for them, but you did it right. You did it right, okay?
You did it
Welcome. And
I can tell when it's authentic and when it's like forced.
Exactly. You know how to say it and hit it right.
Oh, man. So we are so happy to have you all back. Listen, how is the day finding everybody? Donna, how you doing?
I mean, like I said, a black woman is running for president.
And how you feel about that?
I can't even tell you. I was like, at first, I was like, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. And then I thought, my mother is not alive to see this. My older sister, is not alive to see this. You know, growing up like I did, I think she's about a year younger than me or something like that in the 1960s. And you grow up in the 1960s and you're marginalized everywhere you go. And you have to work twice as hard to get half as far.
Yeah.
And that's what you're told, right? And look at her. She worked probably quadruple times as hard, and look where she's going.
And that's been the first at many things.
It is so affirming. So I was on a phone call last night with about 43,999 other people helping to support her, contributing to her $1 million fundraise in 3 hours.
Other women.
Let's make that clear.
Yeah.
Other women. We were standing there. I got about 1,000 text messages like, you have to be here, and I'm like, it's Sunday, I'm trying to watch, House of Dragons, but it was great. And I felt inspired. I didn't know I would feel so electrified, but I did in ways. I was watching, just to get excited, I was watching these old debate performances of hers when she was with Mike Pence and taking him down. I was like, yes, I can't wait.
She's good at that. And you have to be true to what can be unburdened.
Okay. Okay. That's what Beyonce. Orlando sent me.
I love that.
a 4-minute YouTube video where she said for 4 minutes in different speeches, different clothes, different context.
You have to believe in what can be unburdened by what has been.
And so we're unburdened.
Oh, gosh. Afro Nation folks, Smade, Josh, Essosa, how are you all doing today?
Oh, we're good. It's been a long day, but we're good. Excited to be here.
We're excited to have you. Thank you for the little concert that you gave us in the beginning. I think we're going to figure out how to put that in this episode. Our audio engineer is giving us a thumbs up like, yes, absolutely. Y'all sound good. Excited to talk about Afro Nation that's headed to Detroit for the second year. So for Hot Takes in 2023, Detroit became the second U.S. city to host the International Afrobeats Festival, Afro Nation. Organizers of the Music and Culture Festival celebrating the African diaspora announced earlier this year that they plan to return to Detroit for a second round in 2024. Last year, Afro Nation Detroit 2023 drew tens of thousands of attendees each day. This year, they are looking to continue engaging the community and bringing more people to the city of Detroit. And for this trip, they want to share this year's lineup and discuss how they can continue to unite the African diaspora, why Detroit is the only U.S. stop in all the activities happening around and during the weekend.
Can I just say this? Yeah. When I hear African diaspora and you're here, it makes me feel really good. True story. A couple years ago, I was on this phone call with a friend of mine I went to college with who lives in South Africa, and we were talking to people from a university in Johannesburg about working together on a sister city between Johannesburg and Detroit. And there was somebody from Trump's State Department on the call, and he said, there are about 45,000 people in the diaspora in Michigan. And I was like, 45,000, what? And I was so offended. I said, well, can you all define diaspora for me? Because I thought diaspora was everywhere, right? We're just looking at people who have immigrated to the United States. And I was, kind of rude and disrespectful because my thing is you don't get to change these terms. I'm a child of Pan-Africanism, a belief that we are connected and we should connect. And, an understanding through my own lived experiences of how we are connected to each other. So for you all to come here in a city that was rejected by people who did not think we were part of the diaspora and claim us really feels good.
It does feel good. And they glowing, they smelling good. Y'all look good.
And you know what? One more thing. I was reminded that about 25 years ago, some friends of mine were trying to start an African town in the city of Detroit.
Ooh, I remember this.
And African town never was able to materialize because people were saying things like, well, it's an all-black city. Why do you need African town? It's an all-black city. We should have an African town in an all-black city, right? And so there's been this anti-black, anti-African sort of sentiment that sometimes floats around, and the fact that so many people came out to embrace you tells you that times are changing and people are really wanting to connect.
And can I just infer that place also matters, and where the festival was last year was on the grounds of a place that many Detroiters hold near and dear to our hearts, right? And so it was just beautiful. Smade, I want to start with you because, as Donna said, we are really all a culmination of our experiences. And what in your experience led you to co-found such an amazing gathering?
Right.
Wow. Thank you so much. First of all, I must say I'm feeling your vibe. Both of you are one of the two best hosts I've had on this trip. So thank you so much for welcoming us. Thank you for that introduction. For me, it's the journey. Like, I moved to the UK, about 20 years ago now, and it wasn't cool to be African. And I came from Lagos State, Nigeria, where I was born, and I had my identity in me, and I wanted to showcase that in this new space. I wasn't cool, I was new. The accent was fresh, I was racially abused. It wasn't really, really cool to be African. So I started this reunion to bring Africans together, and only allowing African DJs, African food, African music, African vibe, just promoting us, for us by us. And the journey started off there. I went to uni, studied my first degree, second degree was based on promoting this, where we are right now, taking us global, so I'm like a little kid in a candy store right now. So, I met Wizkid at a very young age, 14 years ago, met Davido, met a whole lot of the superstars you see today in Afrobeats. And I started pushing and putting them on, started tours, shows, concerts. It kept on evolving, kept on getting bigger. There's always rooms for us to get bigger. And we wanted to do what the hip-hop scene was doing, And Afrobeats was created. We had the first ever Afrobeats festival in 2011 at a 5,000 capacity in central London, HMV Apollo at the time. And that was the beginning. There was no going back. We had P Square, we had Ghanaian artists, we had some other artists. But then the man that stole the show was a young boy called Wizkid, and the whole London fell in love with him. And, the community started backing our music very strong. And we've grown from that to now creating, festivals. So our first ever festival was Afro Nation 2019. Myself and my business partner came together, Obi Asika, who was also, at the time the head of Echo Talent, and he was already playing his part in the mainstream industry, being the head of Echo Talent, an agency that showcases, UK, and black music, which Josh was also a part of at the time. And I was like a culture ambassador, always putting on our artists, dancers, comedians, everyone in the creative space when it comes to our industry, and even the food industry as well. So when we met, our ideas aligned, we came together and thought about, putting this on. And that was how Afro Nation was created, and from the first ever Afro Nation Festival in 2019 that a lot of people never thought was going to happen or thought it was going to be a fire festival.
Fire festival.
Came to be one of the biggest things to ever happen to us, and it's since traveled the world. We've been to Ghana, also connecting our roots back home. We've been to Puerto Rico, we've been to Miami last year. We've been to Portugal 4 times, and now we're in Detroit again for the second time. So, yeah.
Because I like to say we black all over the world. We are all over the world, and all over the world we are black. Essosa, I want to ask you this question about Detroit and the festival coming to Detroit. Why was it important, number one, to come to Detroit the first time, and then, hey, we got to do a repeat? Because we love our city. I'm from the East Side. What up, though? Don't make no apologies for it. I see some East Siders in the house. Almost 80% black city, the largest majority black city in the United States of America. Why Detroit? Why was it so important to be here?
I think for us, wherever we go to as Afro Nation, it needs to kind of make sense, like historically and culturally. There's so much like rich black history in Detroit that it only made sense that when we were like, okay, where else are we going to go to? We had Miami, and it's like, okay, of course you're going to Miami. It's the party city. Everybody wants to party, sure. But it's like when we're trying to connect with our roots and the culture and history of black people and connecting like the African history with African American history, it was like, where in America should we go to? And it was like, Detroit seems like there's nothing in Detroit like Afro Nation. Why don't we go see how it is? Got here, it was amazing. The city welcomed us. It was like, oh my gosh, guys, maybe we should move here.
Move. I love it when black people find home in the city. Move here.
Exactly. Yeah, that feels good.
So it was just like, it just felt like, I think after the experience of the first year, and then it just felt like a no-brainer to come back the second year. And then Bedrock, who are partners on the show, they've also been like so helpful with like connecting us with local businesses and like the local community. So it's been such a great experience. Like, it's just like, why not Detroit? Now that we've been here, it's like, why not Detroit? Let's come back. Like, if you have us every year, we'll be here.
Oh, dope. Shout out to Otto at Bedrock, too.
Yes.
You're really doing a whole lot of work with this. Go ahead, Donna.
No, I was just going to say, I didn't go last year. I forget why. I think I wasn't feeling well, but my daughter went. She was like, you have to go this year. I mean, everybody I talked to talked about what a wonderful experience it was. Not just entertaining, but uplifting, right? Mm-hmm. Can you talk about the uplifting nature of Afrobeats? What do you see, Josh, as being the most significant parts of this for you? Because, I mean, I imagine giving it is not just work, but you feel something when you walk away, right?
Yeah, so for us as a team, this is like a big passion project for us. Afrobeats is a universal global sound right now. And as Smade always says, the message of Afrobeats is positivity, it's love, and it's about empowering each other. You can't be in a mood to listen to Afrobeats. You have to get up and dance, you know, and literally connect. So that's very, very important. And just to add to what Essosa was saying about, you know, coming back to Detroit, Detroit is being amplified and highlighted in such a good way at the moment. We've had the NFL draft that was here. We've had the Michigan Chronicle show that was here, like a free show. Do you know what I mean? Also for the community as well. So we want to also be a part of that movement, and that's very, very important to us.
And it's a kind of different audience, though, right?
Oh, no.
It's
agreed.
a kind of different audience because you're bringing Detroiters together.
Correct.
I think NFL did bring Detroiters together. A whole lot of people coming from outside.
Correct.
But in this, it's really bringing people from the outside together with you guys to really create something and a connection that just feels so real. Yeah. And I do have questions about that. Have you thought about possibly providing some discounted tickets for low-income Detroiters?
Yeah, I mean, those conversations are definitely going on. We've got ambassadors, obviously, that are working across the show as well. We're, as Essosa said, we're working with like local businesses as well. So it's about giving everybody an opportunity to be involved in this. Yeah. This is not like a money-making thing. This is about empowering everybody, uplifting everyone. Come and connect and enjoy the festival.
Wonderful, because there's some people I would love to come. And I just want to make sure that we can create a pathway for them to be there who would otherwise not be able to be there. So I know that's something we can discuss offline. I know you got to pay your bills also. And I heard it was fantastic. The screens, everything, the you know,
over 15,000 people.
15,000 people. Can you talk about the event setup, though? Because that's what I heard was really impressive.
Can I just say, it's on the site of the Brewster Douglas Project, y'all. I mean, I'm sure y'all heard that. That's where Diana Ross grew up. You know, like it is.
And my mother lived there.
Right. Detroiters are not divorced from our affinity for place, right? And that place is very special to so many of us. Yeah.
And, you know, the place, it's Brush Park, right?
Yep.
And Brush Park is a community that was historically a black community. And, you know, now it is somewhat gentrifying. And so to be able to have our place in a community that has been ours and our family reunion there, you know, I was actually doing some genealogy stuff, and my grandfather's address was right there, right? And so it was a reminder that my mother lived there. And so many people lived in that space. And at that time, there were only so many places in the city of Detroit black people could live. Segregation was a real thing. And so we even had in our public housing, it was segregated. And so you're in a space that used to be segregated by force. And now it's just someplace that a lot of us call home.
We're going home.
That's really, really special. And I also appreciate you for that message as well, because it just shows a testament to what we're doing. And as I said, we want to continue to uplift and, you know, build this community.
You know, it's a tremendous gift, Smade, for those of us who have the ability and a platform to gather people. And not just gather people, but to gather black people. How do you carry that, knowing that this is, I believe, a divine gift, right? And you're able to take it around the world. How do you sit with that gift? Do you know you have it? Do you recognize it within yourself? Do you acknowledge it?
I've been blessed with it from a very young age, and I've identified it. Part of Afro Nation, you know, is for you to know who you are, to know your roots, to know your identity, you know, where you're from. I've known to have this gift from a very young age of probably 3, when my dad used to take me to the villages to watch festivals, drum festivals, rain festivals, masquerade festivals. All of these things has been in me from a very young age. I grew up to be a leader. I'm the first of 13 children in my family.
Wow.
First son,
Ooh, they was busy.
I've always had the leadership skills, I was a class captain growing up in boarding school. I was a blow-house prefect boy managing 3,000 students. Moving to the UK, I started throwing house parties, always sold out. My club parties, always sold out. I've always brought people together from a very, very young age. So, seeing the numbers that we pull with Afro Nation is really no surprise to me. And I only, look forward to drawing bigger numbers than that.
All right,
so
stand in it.
It's for everyone to understand you have a talent, you have a gift, and you just have to come together to invest in one another and share your gift.
I love it. Investing in one another and sharing our gifts. Essosa and Josh, let's talk about who coming, because it's about to be crazy here in the city of Detroit. All right, y'all want to give it away? Because I got
It's about bridging the gap, from Lil Wayne, Rema, Ashake, Detroit's very own Cash Doll. We've got the Amapiano stage, Uncle Waffle, Scorpion Kings, Party Next Door. I can go on all day. But it's going to be a movie. It's going to be something that's very, very special.
It's going to be a movie. Are y'all documenting this journey? Okay, because I can't wait to pull up Netflix or whatever streaming platform and watch.
Coming soon.
I already know. I already know. Make sure we get the interview when it's getting ready to drop. Okay, make sure y'all call because this is amazing. This is amazing. How can folks get their tickets? There are tickets still available. Tell folks where they can go to get the tickets to support.
Get your tickets at Detroit.afronation.com.
Say it again.
Detroit.afronation.com.
All right. Go to Detroit.afronation.com to get your remaining tickets. I know. Particularly, a lot of folks in my family are excited about Lil Wayne coming. I mean, we grew up with Lil Wayne. The block gonna be hot that day. All right, thank y'all so much for coming on.
Pleasure.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back with Graig Donnelly, India Solomon, and Bucky Willis to discuss an equitable development framework they recently teamed up on. Keep it locked.
Thank you.
Have you always dreamed of being on the airwaves? Well, the Detroit Eastside Engaged Podcast Network, or DEEP for short, is here to make that dream a reality. Located inside the Stoudemire, the DEEP Network offers studio space and production staff to help get your podcast idea off the ground. Doesn't take a whole lot of work to get started. Just visit the Authentically Detroit page at ecn-detroit.org or call Sarah at 313-948-0344.
Founded in 2021, the Stoudemire is a membership-based community recreation and wellness center centrally located on the east side of Detroit. Membership in the Stoudemire is available on a sliding scale for up to $20 per year or 20 hours of volunteer time. The Stoudemire offers art, dance, and fitness classes, community meetings and events, resource fairs, pop-up events, the neighborhood tech hub, and more. Members who are residents of the east side have access to exclusive services in the wellness network. Join today and live well, play well, be well. Visit ecndetroit.org.
All right, welcome back to Authentically Detroit, everyone. Graig Donnelly is the president of Proxy, an owner's representative for mission-based organizations and small businesses that want to improve their physical environments in order to uplift their purpose. India Solomon is a Detroit-based abstract visual artist who paints as a means of wayfinding, releasing, and channeling a more grounded version of the present. And she be singing, and she ain't told me about that.
Right.
And I interviewed her. I sat down across from her for an hour before she ain't said that. And Bucky Willis's career and research lies at the intersection where architecture and design meet social issues and emotional impact, lending her to create the concept of bleeding heart design. Recently, Graig, India, and Bucky collaborated on an equitable development framework in Detroit that analyzes current conditions and made implementable recommendations for moving forward. All right, y'all, welcome to Authentically Detroit. I don't know if we had you guys on before. Graig, we've had on. Bucky and India, welcome to Authentically Detroit.
Hey,
Yes.
welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yes, really, really happy to have you all. And, equitable development is a conversation that Donna and I have all the time.
Right. Yeah, and a lot of times when people say equitable development, I don't know what they're talking about. They just call it equitable development. It's sort of like affordability. It means different things. But you guys interviewed me as well as other people to really get an understanding of what it meant to people who are in the work, right? And I think that is what makes it different, your project different, is you really wanted to understand equity from the perspective of people who are actually trying to produce equity, and not necessarily from researchers or, people who are funding equity. Can you talk about your process and how you selected that process for developing this framework?
Graig?
Yeah. So I want to tell a little story, I guess, that goes back a few years. When I started Proxy 5 years ago, pretty soon after that, Kevin Ryan at the Ford Foundation, I started having conversations about the need for exactly what Donna just said, that we don't have enough direct from people on the ground in Detroit trying to do this work, analysis in their own words, their stories about what is and isn't working for them and what they need individually and collectively. And it took a few years of us bouncing this idea around before summer of 2022, we had not really found what we thought would be the right place to ask to do this research. And I finally asked him, are you waiting for me to put together a team to do this research? And he said, yeah, for a while now. And I said, okay, well, let's do it then. And so we put together a budget, and I reached out to Indy and Bucky, who I'd had the pleasure of collaborating with in very small ways in the past, and just been inspired by their work, and also wanted to set an example for how to do this kind of work in the way we modeled our team. And so the three of us put our heads together and came up with a process that was grounded in a whole lot of listening to dozens and dozens and dozens of people. That's where it started. That's kind of where it ended too. We want to just continue listening, actually. And I don't know if you want to add to that.
Yeah, I can jump in. You mentioned the process and what was that process? How did we design it? And it was very voice focused. You've seen all these reports before. And you mentioned my artistic background, but I do have a background in public policy and urban planning. And the container that this research fit under was City Shares, which is my consulting practice. But really, it's a container for kind of these small to mid-scale projects in Detroit that need to be people focused, are very much land-based projects. But in the context of community development and building community. So in bringing this research out to the world, we did not want to summarize. We did not want to kind of synthesize. It was no, what are the actual voices saying? So the thing that I love about this report is that it steers away from the technical language. And, there's 50 pages of quotes in there, direct quotes, but folks are very much in conversation with each other throughout the report. And it brings a different angle than hey, we looked at all these numbers and, this is what we found. It's no, we talked to these folks who are on the ground, who have been working through actual real estate development projects, or even thinking through what needs to happen on their block, making real moves, acquiring property, doing the things, right? And, what is making it so difficult for folks to drive change in their own communities.
And I think that's what's one of the best parts about the report, is that you interview actual community developers who are on the ground experiencing impact, whether that impact is advantageous or disparate, and, doing the work to design interventions. As you all talk to all of these folks, Donna talked a little bit about the many definitions of equity, the many definitions of affordability, and this when a term comes to mainstream, it sort of gets co-opted. But after having all of these conversations, how are you all defining equity? What did these conversations reveal, Bucky?
So what I like about our approach is that we did not try to fit defining this into one little cute sentence. We really dug deep and we broke it down into about 10 different kind of key points. And it was so much to unpack from all these conversations that it took us way longer than we even expected. But what I appreciate the most is the authenticity of how passionate people were when they were talking, and then how we would try to figure out how to put that into just how kind of blunt and frank these.
There's a quote in there from Sarita. Sarita
there was some cuss words in this report.
Sarita Scott. Congratulations to Sarita Scott, by the way, who just got appointed to be the VP at Skillman Foundation. I guess the first one of the first things that you guys blatantly name in equitable real estate development implementation is Detroit should be celebrated as a majority black city.
Yes.
Why was that
Period.
important?
Yes.
Exactly. I mean, so many reasons. I'll speak to what I think it really, of course, rose to the top is that usually we designate all these other places as like historical, and then they have certain kind of processes and things to keep those things designated historical. And we were like, well, why can't we designate a city black and do the things that keep a city black? So that was one of the kind of questions that we kept having with interviewees, and it was just a really hot topic. But I think, if we acknowledge Detroit for what it is right now, it is a beautiful city because of the people who are in it, the majority of people who are in it right now, and the culture that people of color bring to the city. So as we approach the work of the barriers to equitable development, those people, black people especially, are having the most trouble developing the very city that we live, work, thrive in. And so it had to be, I think, the first kind of out the gate statement.
I think it's important because, for so long, the black composition of Detroit has been viewed from the outside as a weakness, as a failure. That it sort of became black because nobody else wanted it or was thrown away and now it's ours. We live in a city that celebrates Greektown. And I remember in the midst of trying to develop African Town, they said, no, there's too many black people. And then somebody came up with the failing idea of Asian Village, right? Because we can celebrate Asians and we can celebrate Chinese people, but what we can't do is celebrate black people because it's, and it's even when you say, well, I'm working on this black issue, you are automatically sort of told to say, and brown. Black and brown. It has to be followed by and brown, or else you're saying something that's too aggressive. And so for you to put that in there really was affirming for me to read that. I have a question for you, Indy, because when I met you, you were an intern getting your master's in urban planning, right? That wasn't that long ago.
Yes.
It was just like 2 weeks ago. But when you were getting your master's in urban planning, and I just read June Manning Thomas's book, Redevelopment and Race, Planning a Finer City.
We love you, Dr. June.
Love her. And she talks about some of the problems with urban planning. And so you're an urban planner, but you're doing something a little bit differently than traditional urban planning. Can you talk about the differences and why you have sort of incorporated other kinds of arts into your process?
Yes, I love this question. There's a reason I have deviated from the traditional field of urban planning because I realize behind a lot of that work is done behind a desk. A lot of that work is done in the mapping system, in the GIS, in the ACS data. And, the biggest thing I struggled with in grad school was that the data that we had available to talk about the people of Detroit from a planning perspective did not align with what I knew and experienced as a little black girl from the West Side. Like it didn't align. There was so much that was missed. And I knew that those pieces that were being missed were what we needed to thrive. So me becoming an artist, or it really just bringing my art into the world in a way that, can be a viable way of living, was my way of connecting with how people on the ground really lived and what people are doing, how people are making their money, how folks are interacting with each other. A lot of that is not reflected in how urban planners see communities. And these folks often have their hands on the dollars and the policies that create change that impact people's lives. But they're not kind of out in the field living lives with folks. And my biggest thing was like, if we're not living our best lives, or we're not understanding things from a cultural perspective, we cannot make decisions on these matters. And that goes into the, even the design of the report, down to the language, the design, the artwork that's throughout. This is the way that resonates with people. It's a type of communication that, is it's just more personal.
It sure enough resonates with me. One of the things that I am always saying, and I think it's what you are illustrating, is having a love for the people more than a practice, right? Because when you love the practice, it's easy to get caught up in front of your computer looking at data, not understanding or realizing that there are people and lives and whole communities behind some of these data sets, and getting out and actually living with community, becoming, culturally competent is important. But that only happens when you love the place, when you love the people in India. I can really tell you love the people, you love the city of Detroit. And so you mentioned thriving, right? How does this contribute to our thrival in the city of Detroit? How are we defining thriving?
I think this is a through line for all of us actually on this team, that we did not exist well in the formal structures of our professions, and we had to find our own ways a little bit different. And you all were talking about this with your guests before the break about the importance of place. And when we're in a place that we feel that we belong and that is beautiful and uplifting and is for us and of us, and where we can express our full selves, we are much more likely to thrive.
Yeah. If data is an interesting thing. I've been looking at how data has been weaponized against us more often than it's being used to uplift us, right? People don't gather data about thriving. People don't gather data like how many people love their family members, how many people enjoy, going to a concert or going to the Aretha, how many people find joy in these connections. Instead, we measure income data, and we measure employment data, and we don't even look at people who are employed outside of a formal workplace, right? Because you have to be employed in the kind of place that's contributing to unemployment in order for that to count. And a lot of us are doing things outside of those norms. If you have a farm, for example, you may not be part of a formal labor force, but you're growing things and eating things and creating things. And so how do we use different data in a way that allows for people to actually see us? Because what gets measured is what gets listened to.
Yeah,
Love that question.
I think the value of qualitative data, the quality of it, the kind of informal person-to-person data, is not as valued in certain sectors as the quantitative numbers and the pie charts and all that stuff, which I really feel like does a disservice to a lot of people. But because this is such a people, person, human-oriented report and process, we, of course, relied on the quality of what we were hearing versus what numbers and metrics we could pull from it, which is another thing that I really appreciate about this entire process with this team is it wasn't about being, nerdy, kind of, not nerdy in a good way, but numbers-oriented, factionalist. It was just more about here's the facts in terms of human interaction.
Yeah, I just want to give an example of where quantitative data gets it wrong, and especially with respect to it influencing policy. We were, as a follow-up to this research, we were presenting to a group, and there are several presentations, and there was some data being presented about the city of Detroit and housing trends and all of that stuff. And one of the stats was Detroit continues to show up as this single person household city.
Right.
So we've got a low marriage rate, single person household, So there are all of these policies that are centering around the fact that, if most Detroiters are single people or single person households, then we don't need these big old homes, or, we can continue to develop 1 bedrooms after just, all of these 1 bedrooms and studios because there are a bunch of single people. But we know on the ground, you may show up as single on paper, but you've got cousins living with you. You've got folks, even staying for a couple years at a time and leaving. You've got aunties that are still staying at grandma's house to take care of them. So those are the kinds of stories that don't show up.
And you have couples that have chosen not to be married,
chosen
right?
not to be married.
I think that the challenge is, we know this, that the nuclear family is a pretty European concept that doesn't really resonate in so many communities where you do have larger families living together by intention, not by need. And so really trying to figure out ways to encapsulate that. I look at school data as an example, right? So every year we try to figure out how schools are performing based on MEP scores, whatever they call the tests now, these standardized test scores. And we know already going in that Black kids and low-income kids are going to score lower than kids with money who are more white and sometimes Asian, depending on where you're from. We know that. We don't need a test to tell us that, but we take the test anyway, and every year we act surprised, oh my goodness, this is a failing school, as though somehow a standardized test is going to balance poverty and injustice in other parts of society, which is ridiculous. We could ask different questions. We could ask kids, how do you feel about going to school? Do you enjoy learning? How do you like your teacher? How do you feel supported? You could ask parents, do you feel as though this teacher is a good partner? And that's probably
questions
better.
Like, do you eat breakfast every day?
Right.
I mean, just
but do you eat breakfast and do you enjoy breakfast? Because not just do you have a lunch, but so many things aren't good. Let's try to measure.
Or what did you learn today? Ask a child what they learned that day.
Or if you're going to do a standardized test, do you feel as though you're learning and growing? Are you interested in learning? My father used to say, and he was wrong about a whole lot of things, but he told me this, and I've never forgotten that. He said what school is most important for is not teaching you. It's not what you learn, it's learning how to learn. Learning how to become a lifelong learner is more important. And so if we can teach a young person how to acquire information and get them excited about it, right, then they're going to continue growing. When you continue telling children you're not smart enough, school becomes problematic. You take a MEP test or you take whatever kind of test, you get a low score, everybody says you're not learning anything, and your morale goes down, but people think that you're supposed to get excited about tests. I think it does the opposite, and it's what we've decided to measure as opposed to what we could measure. Because
and
I do think
without naming those systemic barriers that students are up against that cause them to test lower. And one of the things that you all did very, very blatantly was also speak to some of these systemic barriers, and particularly around risk when we talk about real estate development, right? Yes. And who gets to define risk and why particularly financiers are more risk averse when there is a person of color sitting in their office.
Yes, let's go there.
Go there.
I'll speak to this a little quickly so everybody else can get in on it too. But I think what I want to say is this like little thread of connection I'm hearing of this kind of school pipeline that really leaves us as Black people, after we go through this systemic pipeline of school, like not ready for the bigger things, the financial things. Like, why aren't they teaching kids how to do financial stability and get their credit scores up if those things are so important and all that stuff? Anyway, but the thriving topic, right, was something that we kind of got from Lauren Hood, who's doing the Thriving Index. But one thing that they mentioned most was kind of related to risk, was that to thrive as a Black developer was to be able to fail forward, to be able to fail and then still have the finances and the back end to get right back up and try again, which was a privilege that they saw white counterparts having, and they didn't have them as their Black counterparts.
I learned about something new not too long ago, and I want to share it. So we've all heard about redlining maps, right? And redlining maps were based on people's race largely and other kind of data, and they use that in ways to determine where to put money, right? What I didn't understand was that the Reinvestment Fund, which was formed as a community development financial institution, created a market value analysis set of maps that have mapped 40 cities. And those maps align very closely with strategic neighborhoods in Detroit and other places of investment based on the same kinds of data. So, you're not using redline. You just now they think they have blue, green, and yellow squares. But it doesn't really matter if it's red, blue, green, or yellow when you decide that you're going to quantify risk. And risk is all about income, credit scores, whatever it is that you are using to define risk, and you're going to view people from the lens of risk, then you're going to have a justification for withholding resources for certain groups of people and giving them to others. And so I think that what you're doing is super important. And I'm wondering, is this it? Or are you going to take it to a whole nother level, not to create maps, because I don't think we need maps, but to help build people's understanding? Like, there's a planning conference in September. Will you be presenting there?
Before we go there, can I talk about the risk a little bit more? Because I love that we started going there. I think what we see is that risk is not defined on the terms of communities around Detroit, as in what are risks to you and your neighbors living the kind of lives that you want, and how do we address those things?
That's good, Graig Donnelly. That's really good.
That was a core issue that we came back to over and over again in this work that we've been doing together. And the way that it is defined, which, we knew this already, is that the communities that need a lot of support in Detroit to be able to see development happen on their terms are riskier from a financial sense because they haven't been given as much resources. We don't need to write a report about that. Everybody knows that already. But we need to turn the concept of what risk is on its head in order to actually address these
and maybe
issues.
even what success is.
Yes.
Like, is success increasing housing values in a neighborhood? Is that what success looks like when that means you're going to push people out? Right. Or success stabilizing neighborhoods and making sure people in those neighborhoods can live comfortably? We don't measure that at all. And at the state of the city every year, the mayor's, look, values of homes are going up, as though that's always a good thing. But I'm hearing from my neighbors, I can't afford an apartment. I can't afford my rental home. I'm feeling pushed out, and it's not feeling good universally.
And all we're building today, not all, but the vast majority of what we're building today is for rent, not for sale, and it's not that affordable.
And it's also studio apartments. Yep. It's one great big dormitory in the city of Detroit for people who are transitioning from college to career. Come here, live in this cool apartment that only you can afford, and then you can go out somewhere else and raise a family.
Barely afford. You know, one of my critiques of a lot of reports that do all kinds of studies is that we spend a awful amount of time analyzing the problem, and the problems have been well analyzed and they've been well articulated, and we make it so sexy and we come on and we talk about it, right? But one of the things that you all did was you also spent a lot of time thinking through solutions, and the report proposes some solutions. And you know, the top one is one of my favorite ones as we talk about risk, is as funds for full proof of concept, not just planning and ideating. Give us the money.
Yes.
To do the thing, to do the full thing.
Yeah. Why is that important?
And going back to the point of risk and who's trusted and how banks are, making their decisions, we don't get to look at, or we don't really talk about the amount of larger projects that fail or also take 10 years longer than expected. Cough, cough, some large building in downtown right now is still not open. So, I think there's a lot of grace given to these large projects because they're shiny things to announce, but they may not be shiny things to the people until 10 years down the road. So why not take that same chance on a school rehabilitation that's not $50 million, but maybe it's $3 million.
Right.
Like if you make a mistake on a $50 million project, your loss may be $25 million. You mess up a little bit on that $3 million.
Or, what you can do is you have enough power. You can just move people in from another office building into your office building so your vacancies don't show up. Because you are not required to you are not required to complete a market feasibility study before you get the money. Imagine if you had to say, look, we have this much office space. Let's do a market fees. You can't build anything without a market study if you are in the hood, right? Because there's an assumption that there's no market. You got to prove there's a market.
We got to count rooftops. We need to do a leakage report. We got to do all of the things. Yes.
Downtown, we just move it around. I look at how we've moved around buildings downtown. We had a train station. Now it's Ford headquarters. Ford headquarters used to be the Renson. Now it's the train station. GM headquarters used to be the Renson. Now it's going to be the Hudson building. And now let's just tear down the Hudson or the Renson. And all of this is subsidized by taxpayers. Every single move is subsidized by taxpayers. And every single time we have solved the problems that never really get solved because that's not how you solve them. And one of my challenges is that we look at economic development as something that happens primarily downtown and not inside of neighborhoods. We don't look at the economic loss when we don't invest in our neighborhoods. So I think you guys are doing great work.
One of our proposed solutions here is that we, that funders / the city, rather than putting up all these barriers to community development organizations around town, give them big buckets of cash. No strings attached. Here's $10 million, Eastside Community Network. You invest this in real estate development in your neighborhood in a way that you know is right.
Thank you, Graig.
Period. End of story.
I promise we will do a great job with it.
I know you will, because you already are doing a great job, right?
Yeah. The track record of serving people is there.
That part. And so we talk about creative methods to get capital to folks doing this work, but you guys also highlight the more systemic changes that need to happen policy-wise, right? Especially as it relates to some of the public processes and representation from organizations like Eastside Community Network and Grantmont Development, like all of these folks who are on the ground doing the work every day. Why was it also important to include changes that consisted of policy? Anybody take that question?
Well, I think in terms of some policy things, there are quasi-governmental entities that could shift things up a little bit quicker and differently than the entirely governmental agencies.
Detroit Land Bank Authority.
and even the Wayne County Land Bank Authority, which some people kind of forget or don't even know is there.
Yeah,
so
for some
in terms of
white-led
that policy,
Sorry, go ahead.
No, in terms of those kind of low-hanging fruit policy changes that could happen, that was important to lift up because these entities came up every day in every interview, and they come up in every community conversation typically. So something has to change there.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say, for some white-led developers / development organizations, there is a very strong and rich history in Detroit of the land bank and or the city earmarking whole swaths, blocks and blocks and blocks, whole neighborhoods even, of any land that's available. They get first crack at it.
Yeah.
We don't do that for, smaller, not even smaller, actually. Sometimes they're larger organizations around town that are doing amazing community development work in their own neighborhood and have been there forever. We don't say, you get first crack at what happens with all this.
In your neighborhood.
That will result in material change in an actual neighborhood. So I love that you guys did that. I'm interested, in terms of next steps, right? So many reports are done, so many studies are released, recommendations are put out there. What's next? Are you all working with community development organizations, small-scale developers, other community change agents to pilot some of these recommendations and to use the platform that all of you have, the collective platform, to advocate and steer resources to these entities to be able to pilot some of the recommendations? India?
Yeah, I can start because I think we each have distinct goals based on how our companies are situated in the space. So one of my big personal interests following this research is to understand the full landscape of projects. And now that we have this equitable development framework, we've got this community of folks who have their hands actually in multiple projects. Can we get a database of those projects that we're all working on so that there's some kind of power behind what these projects look like? We get all the big announcements about all the big things, but what is really the landscape of projects that we define as equitable? One of the first steps that we've taken as a team, at the start of this research, we actually set aside some funds to invest in something. And the other important part about this research is everyone got paid for their time. All interviewees got a stipend. Even folks who responded to our survey got a small stipend. And we gave folks the option to, take it, donate it somewhere, or donate it back to our pilot fund to invest in some kind of solution. And we were just surprised and, grateful for how many folks trusted that pot of money, trusted the pilot fund without even knowing what it was. So we are investing in the expansion of the Detroit Development Tracker, which is housed with...
Where's that housed at? At Outlier Media.
At Outlier Media.
What can you tell us about Outlier, Orlando?
Yeah.
I heard you work there.
Yeah, you'll be helping us out with that.
Yes, I'm excited about it.
Yeah, and just so Detroiters can understand what's going on in their neighborhoods too. So many folks are like, well, I didn't know that was going on, or I didn't know. We all got to know. So let's have a centralized database. And so for City Shares, I'm interested in, from that database, what are the projects that we are defining as equitable development projects based on who's behind it, who they're going to serve, what the composition of the project is, and can I create some kind of centralized fundraising platform? Even if it's a showcasing thing and it's some kind of resource that folks can use to shop around and say, hey, we're part of this network. But also, can the City Shares platform serve as some kind of you can actually directly invest in projects? And so I'm kind of working with my tech friends in the background on that.
That sounds great. I want to get back to another question that I still want to, and I think it's getting Because if you're going to have policy change, that means somebody who has the power to effect policy has to be changed, right?
Yeah.
And that means if it's at philanthropy, if it's at city government, state government, is it our politicians? How are we working to make sure that these findings make their way to people? Because there's lots of great people who work in all of those spaces who don't always have the ammunition to fight their battles or a full understanding. How are we helping to shift that thinking there?
So a couple things come to mind on that. One, from the very first conversations about this work, Kevin Ryan at Ford Foundation, who was very generous with making sure we had resources to do this work up until now, was saying that we need to put together this research in a way that it can be a tool for people who are advocating around what should be happening in the future of our city and our state with policymakers, and also to give to those hopeful policymakers. So we're going to have a new governor in the next couple of years. We're going to have a new mayor in the next couple of years. There's going to be a whole lot of leadership change.
And a president.
Yes, exactly. And so there are tangible things in here that can be advocated for with those folks that will be in those decision-making places. And we're trying to do that. The other thing is that we've already anecdotally heard from several people in philanthropy that their conversations internally are changing as a result of having been able to be part of this process and have access to this research. I don't have any good examples of exactly what that means yet, but we've been told anecdotally we're changing the way we think about things because of this.
Listen, we have this really cool exhibit in our space. You can walk in at 4401 Connor and you see the banners, and it's great. Where can people find the books, the documents that you've created so that more people can learn about it?
It is housed at gocityshares.com.
Say it again.
gocityshares.com.
I think it's an amazing read. It is not a laborious read. It's fun to read. It's fun to look at. And it really is affirming. It really is affirming to read that there were a set of folks who put their minds together to really dig deep on this and to come up with some implementable, there's the word, recommendations. India, Bucky, Graig, thank you all so much for being on today.
Thank you.
Yes. Thanks for having us.
All right. If you have topics that you want discussed on Authentically Detroit, you can email us at Authentically Detroit on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, or you can email us at authenticallydetroit@gmail.com. All right, Donna, it's time for shout outs. You have any?
Yeah.
All right.
Shout out Black women.
Hey!
Shout out Black women, because you know what? We are the most disrespected people in America, really. We're told every negative thing about us, but when you want to see something happen, get some sisters together, okay? Graig sees that. Graig is like, listen, I know what to do. I think that
y'all are gearing up, getting ready to save democracy again.
Well, and you know, why not? I think that we are people who have had to stand tall and fight for the people that we love since we've been on these shores, and we've done it. Harriet Tubman did it, but she was not alone, and we've been doing it ever since. And so we don't always get recognized in the history books, and people may not recognize this, but imagine a little girl, imagine my granddaughter Luna, who's 6 years old, being able to look at somebody and say, I too can be president. The amount of pride and the amount of joy that people have just trying to make this happen is, just really historical in nature, and it impacted me in ways that I was really surprised by. So I woke up feeling
really
different.
happy to hear that.
And Orlando said I was glowing, so it must be different, okay?
You are, with them hoops. India, Bucky, and Graig, any shout outs? Yeah, I got shout outs. Bucky, you got a shout out. Graig, you got a shout out.
I got a shout out to my 13-month-old daughter, Louisa, who just started walking, and I am so incredibly proud of her. She probably won't listen to this, but I'm really proud of you, Lou.
She'll listen.
She'll listen. Years later, she'll say, now, what did my dad do that was really exciting?
Really cool.
And you pull out this
Who
podcast.
Is this man?
There we go.
Who is this man? Bucky, India, y'all good on shout outs?
I don't have any shout outs.
All right. I would like to shout out y'all. Thank y'all for coming on and sharing the report. And I want to shout out those Afro Nation folks, man. I'm really, really excited that they came, and I'm really excited to go to the concert.
Me too.
Festival.
Me too. It was such unexpected bonus. I was driving here in Orlando,
Yeah.
said, guess what?
Yeah.
They're here. And I was like, yay. So
Yay.
this has been a great day talking about two issues I'm really excited about. And one of them is, Afrobeats, and the other one is equitable development. And so this has been good.
Shout out to y'all and for that investment in the development tracker. We appreciate it here at Outlier. Listen, we thank you so much for listening. Remember to love on somebody and allow yourself to be loved on. Peace.
Thank you.
Thank you.